Hi, welcome to the podcast Open Minded. So, we've had this conversation before about legalizing drugs in the US or in other countries and the pros and cons of it being legalized. Like, I know some people some people have a bad image about drug use and the other complications that it might bring to the people that use it. And on the other hand, there's like benefits that like people could benefit from. Like let's say it'll be able to treat a certain disease or just any mental complications, or if not, treat pain. Yeah, like I know in California and Colorado, I think they've legalized weed, and a lot of people have used. No, the weed industry has exploded because of that. And now you see weed shops all over the place. People are using it. Well, people are buying weed to like smoke it, or if not, they'll put it in like their vape pens, or using getting edibles too, in order to consume it in that way. And then like there's the CBD industry too. It's basically a chemical that they get, or this oil that they get from the actual weed plant, and yeah, they'll use it in order to treat like say insomnia and stress. So yeah, a lot of people tend to use it for that, and yeah, and or if not, people might just use it recreationally, just to get high, to have that feeling of, I don't know, floating up in the air, or yeah, or just to forget, like whatever people use drugs for. And then currently I use CBD in order to actually help me sleep. Now it doesn't really affect me as much. Probably it's just due to like my body type. I tend to burn through things so easily, so it'll take a lot in order for it to affect me.
So, I don't know if you heard, but Portugal became the first country to legalize use and carrying of drugs. So drugs like heroin, basically soft drugs and hard drugs. Soft drugs being drugs like marijuana, and hard drugs being like heroin and cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And they've seen significant benefits, such as deaths associated with drug overdose. In 2016, there was around 30 deaths related to overdose.
Mm-hmm.
And they've seen their crime rates decrease. So there's they're basically the amount of times people have been criminalized
for using weed or just carrying
no,
it.
just I guess bearing and trafficking drugs in Portugal. It's 16,970.
Yeah, but and then with that, you could say that, let's say, other people from other countries could be bringing their drugs there too in order to sell it, because like they could legally sell it there and they won't get in trouble for it.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's regulated by the government, there's more control. So the benefits with this is that there's going to be more. The drugs are going to be more clean. So, for example, heroin. One reason why it's very dangerous is that it's usually mixed with fentanyl, and fentanyl, what it ends up doing is that it kills you. It stops you from breathing. So, I mean, you also mixing it with heroin, so it's gonna obviously lead to um, fatal effects or life-changing effects. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like you could say that yeah, they're getting it much cleaner and all stuff, but how many people could actually go to those centers? Because like now that it's regulated and now that they could tax it, it's gonna cost a lot more, too.
But it's in those cases, it's it's there's also healthcare. It's not now connected with healthcare. So people, for example, who are addicts, they put them on a small amount, and they slowly decrease it so they could overcome their addiction little by little. So I mean, if you have healthcare, it's gonna get provided. And I
Mm-hmm.
think most likely, if you don't have healthcare, there's other programs that the country provides that would allow you to be able to get your dose of drugs.
Mm-hmm. No, but like yeah, like if you see like let's say like over here, right? You have to go to a certain place in order to get it, or if not get it from a certain person. Not everybody could afford to like look for those programs, or probably due to the lack of education or whatever it is, they're not able to go to like a clean place where actually it's provided and regulated well. So that's why they'll go out of their way to get it from somewhere else where it's not legal, it's not regulated as much.
Well, the issue is that I mean, if it's in Portugal, it's regulated countrywide. It's not like the U.S. The U.S. It's only marijuana that's legalized. Um, it's not like heroin and cocaine. It's still illegal, so it's obviously not going to be regulated. If you're going to get it, you're going to have to get it through the black market, or you're going to have to get it from the street.
Yeah, but
It's
like let's say like there's those like let's say like the really poor communities, right? They tend to like those communities tend to like have like more drug use and all stuff. So um they're probably not as educated. They probably don't have the funds to actually do it, and they don't know how to get to those programs. So like what is stopping them from like going somewhere else to get it much cheaper and it's more available that way? Yes, it's legalized, but since it's not regulated and it's much cheaper in order to actually get it like that, they won't know like let's say they won't know where it's actually coming from or how it's actually made.
but I mean, if you're seeing from the stats, it's in Portugal, the spreading of HIV has decreased. The high risk of opioid effects has decreased. Um, uh, Criminal offenses related to drugs have decreased, and I mean they have a pretty big population. I mean it's obviously not the same as compared to a country like the U.S. or uh, or somewhere like England that have obviously a way bigger population, but Portugal has around 6 million, probably 7 million around now. You could see that when they legalize drugs, the amount of crime has decreased. And the thing is that if you see those social services, they're not provided to the 1%, right? They don't help the 1%. It's like, for example, Obamacare. There was an issue with Obamacare that didn't uh, really help the middle class because it made it more expensive because they produced more money. So it wasn't available to them. And the issue is that these social services are more distributed in the lower income communities. So these people are actually able to contact their healthcare providers and get the healthcare so they could get these drugs. And it's obvious that addiction and overdose it's gonna be highly concentrated on communities of a low socioeconomic status.
Sounds good. But is there any way that like let's say like um let's say not like hospital wise, but like pharmaceutically, they're using it to actually treat something too, or no?
Well, yeah, addiction. Like
Yeah,
I
they're
said.
treating addiction, but like let's say if somebody has like a mental issue, would they be able to use, I don't know, heroin in order to actually like stop, I don't know, a certain disease, or not a
Well,
disease, or like like a disorder,
well, well, you can't really stop a mental disorder unless if it's a
or treat
depression.
it in a way?
Uh, but yeah, I mean, you could treat it. It's like an issue that they're saying that with, for example, people who are experiencing addiction to opioids. An issue is that they're not seeing their physician or the doctor at while they're taking their prescribed medicine, and which is called a DOT, directly observed therapy. Where, for example, if I have an addiction to opioids and my doctor, he's slowly decreasing opioids and he's probably giving me another medicine in order to help me overcome the addiction. If I'm not seeing my doctor when I'm being prescribed the medicine, I could easily just increase the dosage. Like, for example, if my dosage is maybe one capsule out of a container of 60 capsules of opioids, and I self-prescribe myself three capsules instead of one, it's obvious that it's gonna lead to addiction and a longer lasting addiction if I'm not with my physician.
So it's just
That's why, for example, when you see in these commercials when they're advertising medicine for like HIV and nicotine patches and all these type of things, that's why they always say at the end, visit your physician, uh, question your physician in order for him to tell you if it's safe or if it's not safe for you to prescribe to get for you to begin to consume this medicine. So
yeah, like of course you have to listen to, like, let's say you have to listen to your physician because like he actually knows about it, but um yeah, like there's gonna be other people that like they would take that and just be like, well, um he is not here to stop me from actually taking it more. Or if not, like let's say if a little kid gets to the cabinet where like let's say his father has drugs, like it was prescribed to him, but the kid doesn't know much. He just sees, I don't know, he sees pills and he thinks it's candy. So now you have kids that are like that have more easier access to drugs.
yeah, but I mean that's not to blame the healthcare providers. It's not to blame the doctors or physicians. It's more on the parents' fault. It's obvious you're not gonna leave a container nearby a TV or a control on a table or in the refrigerator. And well, nowadays that's why all these containers they have child locks. So I mean it's more difficult for children of young ages to open the container. But I mean either way, you shouldn't have it where a child or a teen could get access to the to the drug. So
Yeah, but like you see, like a kid is always going to be curious. They're always going to try to explore, to find new things, to try new things. So of course, if like let's say his father or his mother has it there, and like he's just exploring his house and he runs into it, takes him in, and now you got a kid that overdosed on drugs because of, yeah, of course, a drug is gonna have a way greater effect on the little kid than like let's say an adult. And yeah, so like now they have easier access to it, so they're gonna have it there.
yeah, but what I'm telling you is that if you have a very cautious parent and the parent is putting it in an area where it's not easy for the child to access. It's obvious. It won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, for example, if you have children and you have your opiates or heroin inside your room, and you tell your child to not go inside, and you lock your room, and you enforce that rule in your house, it's obvious it's not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you're talking about a child, they can't. They're not gonna be able to open a child lock seal.
Well, how do you
Like
know that the kid already knows? Let's say like the kid helps out his father or mother. He helps out his parent. Get his medicine, of course, right? Gets his medicine and he knows how to open it. Now that kid knows how to do it. Only because he's a kid doesn't mean that he's not able to open it too.
Yeah, but I mean, a child at a very young age, his fine motor skills aren't going to be as well developed as a teen or as an adult. So they're not going to be able to use their fingers and their hands in the correct ways in order to open a container. It's like, I mean, now there's bottles where like you have to do certain twists and certain squeezes in order to open. And I mean, the letters are very small. So I mean, but like either way, if you have this medicine locked in your room or somewhere else, that's not available to the public, it's obvious they're not going to be able to reach the medicine and consume it.
Mm-hmm. And then yeah, like if you see like, well yeah, like let's say like legalizing drugs and all that stuff, do you think it might end like the Mexican war with like against drugs and all that stuff too, or?
Well, yeah, it's like if we see most of the drugs, it's coming from outside of the country. I mean, the U.S. It's at all times there's always drug busts. They're always arresting labs and underground harvest where they're harvesting marijuana and in big amounts and other drugs. And I mean, in Mexico, you got people transporting through submarines. I saw the other day. I saw a video where they put cocaine inside avocado. So, and I mean, they transport it through the border, underground, through airplanes. It's through many ways that they're transporting drugs. And if you're making, if you're legalizing drugs, it's gonna be more regulated, and it's gonna be sold by corporations in America. So these people aren't gonna have to use the alternate route of obtaining drugs from the street or from sources that come from Mexico. Since it's going to be since it's going to be criminalized from foreign countries and legalized in America. It's going to be more of a easy access, and it's going to be more clean.
But yeah, like let's say okay, it's legalized in, let's say like they actually legalize drugs in America, right, or in the U.S. and it's illegal in Mexico, right? They're really big in like the production of drugs and importing them to or exporting them to different countries. What is going to stop them from actually importing way more now that it's legal? And then like let's say other people, let's say if I use drugs, right? Let's say that like I use drugs and I obtain my drugs that way, right? Nobody can stop me, or a cop cannot stop and say, "Oh, like, oh, this is a Mexican drug. This is not like the drug that it's like." Let's say you got it from one of the pharmacies here.
But the thing is that also, if you're gonna have all these corporations manufacturing drugs, they're going to be investing more because they're going to become more competitive. So they're going to be investing more in the supervision of foreign drugs. So it's obvious that there's going to be more of a decrease because other than the government investing, there's going to be corporations investing because they want the sales of their drug instead of foreign drugs.
Yeah, but like let's say if I'm able to get it from like my neighbor or from my friend, I don't need to go to those pharmacies. I could get them cheaper too,
It's not necessarily going to pharmacies. It's just
or
shops.
to shops or whatever it is. Um, I've been doing it like this for a very long time. So how is a company gonna stop me from actually doing that and actually buying their cleaner drug?
Because it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be more regulated, so it's going to be less common.
Yeah, it's gonna be less common for like actually doing that, but it's much more easier for me, right? Because like now let's say like the corporations or the government is not tracking how much am I using too, right?
But I mean, either way, there's going to be a big impact. That's why for example, the statistics from Portugal, it has obviously decreased. So I mean, yeah, there's going to be some some people that are still producing it in their house illegally without a license, but either way, it's going to be significantly decreased, and there's going to be more regulation because these companies are investing more. And I mean, these people that have their little labs in their house, they don't possess the economic power or political power that all these corporations have in order to distribute their drugs. It's more like small underground labs or house labs. It's not going to be a big difference. Yeah, it's true. It's still going to happen, but in a very small amount compared to how it is right now. So
Like if you see like back in the 80s or 70s, right? When like weed was illegal, the weed that you could get during those times was like let's say like the THC concentration was way less than what it is nowadays too. So like nowadays, you could get, I don't know, like you could get a really like strong strain of like THC and weed nowadays is way stronger than what it was back then too. Because now they're actually focusing on growing it and all that stuff. So now there's more of a, let's say, like a greater effect on a regular person than if I would buy weed back in the days.
but it's like I mean, if you're going to the weed shop and you're gonna buy marijuana, they're obviously gonna. I mean, if you don't know what you're getting, they're gonna advise you on, like, for example, if you're barely starting and you're like, oh, so I mean, you guys just opened a shop and I want to try out marijuana. I want to smoke marijuana, or I want to eat in edibles. If you're gonna go to the shop and you ask them for a recommendation, they're gonna recommend you. Oh, I mean, if you want to try like 100 milligrams, since you're barely starting, I would advise you just to start with like 5 or maybe a lower amount. And I mean, it's obvious you're not gonna, I don't know, or just try a high dosage like 200 or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you got these companies where people are trained, these shops where people are trained and they know the effects because I mean they have experience. They're not gonna advise you to, on the first try, consume a high dosage or like smoke a high dosage of THC. So.
But yeah, like you could sort of say, like the same thing with like, let's say if you go to a restaurant, right? Those people work there. Like let's say if you go to McDonald's, right? McDonald's always like, sometimes they'll have like really shitty like food, and other times like they'll have it like they'll cook it right, or if not like they'll give you older fries instead of new ones, even though if you wanted the new one. Like they work there, they know what to do, but yet they don't still do it. So
But I mean,
now it's like now you're dealing with like a drug, right? You're dealing with a drug that let's say like a high schooler that barely got this job is gonna sell, and he's used to a certain amount because he's probably done it more often than like let's say a person that barely comes in and doesn't know anything about it. So now he recommends this one because he it doesn't affect him as much. But like let's say this person has a lower tolerance for it.
but I mean, if you're a high schooler, you're not gonna be working in a weed shop. The legal age to use weed or smoke cigarettes or cigars, it's at 21, and consuming alcohol, it's at 21.
Yeah, but like there's still teenagers selling alcohol too. You go to the store and like a teenager will sell you alcohol even though you can't consume it.
In the U.S.
In the U.S.
No, it's not.
Yes,
So if I go to a liquor shop, there's a 15-year-old selling me alcohol.
I'm not saying it's gonna be a 15-year-old.
Well, you're saying a high
It's
school.
gonna be an underage.
Well,
Someone that legally cannot drink it would still sell you it.
but I mean, unless you're talking about a 19-year-old but either way, you won't be able to sell it. It's illegal. It's illegal to sell it. If you're working in a liquor shop, you won't be able to sell alcohol if you're under 21. If the legal age to consume it is 21, you're obviously not going to be able to sell it, and it's going to be probably even less common for someone who is between maybe 21 or 25 to sell alcohol.
But they still do.
Yeah, but it's probably like in those counties.
I've seen it in regular stores too. I've seen it in like let's say like large markets, dude. Like let's say let's say there's somebody in the counter, right? A teenager, at Walmart, right? You're going through him in order to buy that alcohol.
Either way, like I said, you can't do it, and these are
You can't
big
do
companies.
it, but yet they're still doing it.
Well, how are you sure about their age?
You could even
Age-
see it in their face.
Yeah, there's cases where you can see someone who looks very young. For example, a person that looks like he's 16, and in reality, he or she is 25 or 24. I mean, it's obvious. You can't sell liquor if you're under 21. It's obvious you can't sell it, and then especially in the market like Walmart, there's a lot of people, so there's gonna be people looking around, and since it's a bigger company, all these the people who supervise and regulate the operations, like for example OSHA, they're gonna be regulating more because it's a bigger company. It's like if you have a small little store,
But they can't be there all the time.
yeah, you can't be there all the time, but you still, it's like that's why they also have HR. You can't employ someone who's underage to sell alcohol. You just can't.
But
Not even in liquor stores where you find in the corner you see someone underage selling that. It's maybe like in somewhere like Baltimore with there's more poverty. It's obviously gonna be more common there because there's less regulations. It's like if you're going to Mexico and you're going to a town, it's obvious you're gonna find people consuming alcohol and selling alcohol underage because there's less regulations. There's less funds that the county has in order to regulate.
Yeah, but and then there's people that actually enforce it, and there's other people that don't. Like if you see like the company that I work for, there's supervisors, there's assistant supervisors that don't follow the rules. That's there, right? They're supposed to know, but yet they don't do it, and then they don't even enforce it too.
Yeah, but for example, a store like Walmart, there's many different ways people could get harmed. there's physical hazards, for example, physical structures falling apart, or just foodborne infections. What if you're selling cabbage that has E. coli? There's more regulations. That's why when there's a spread of E. coli, they're doing a big recall on cabbage.
Yeah, but because they already sold it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's an action really fast. It's something that's constantly being regulated. It's obvious there's going to be some people that are going to get affected, but it's going to be less because there's more regulations.
Yeah, well, yeah, there could be more regulations. Just it's due to like the person and like if they're actually implementing it too. Because like yeah, a minor cannot sell you alcohol, but yet they still do.
Yeah, but for example, in places like California or places like New York, it's gonna be less common. Like I said.
Yeah, but like let's say let's say I'm a minor, right, and I work for I don't know Walmart. You come with like a 12-pack of beer, right? I can't sell you that, right? But you're getting mad. Okay, now I have to call my manager or supervisor, but he's busy. What am I gonna do?
That doesn't happen. That's why
it doesn't happen. It does.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're in Walmart, you're surrounded by people. There's so many people around, so they're gonna be recording, and they're gonna be talking about it. There's probably already a big line of people waiting for the store manager in order to complain. It's more different in those situations. That's why it doesn't happen as frequent. Yeah, it happens, but it's not as frequent. It's like if you go to Target, like Target or Walmart, they're even asking you for an ID if you're buying ginger ale or something that has that's in the form of a bottle, in a glass bottle. They're even asking you for that. It's let's say like
the craft sodas. The craft sodas, they're like, is like I'm gonna need to see your ID. I'm like, wait, but this doesn't even have any alcohol. They look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, it doesn't.
Even like in Cardenas, I bought a sweetener, and it was just a big bottle. It was the form of a big bottle. It had no alcohol, and they still asked me for an ID. And it's Cardenas, and I mean, Cardenas it's usually in areas that are predominantly
Hispanic.
Yeah, Hispanic. So, I mean, in those places, it's not going to happen as frequent, and I mean, it probably shouldn't happen. That's why I mean, when stuff happens, you're always seeing people posting videos, recording. It's happening at all times.
But it's not going to be all of it. Yeah, it happens frequently, but not all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to change something, it's obvious you can't completely eradicate it. It's going to significantly decrease a big portion of it. It's going to decrease. But the thing is that you obviously can't completely eradicate it. It's like if you create a device that rids people of cancer, or that cures people of addiction. It's obvious, even though you have this device that cures cancer and addiction, it's obvious you're not going to completely eradicate it, because there's communities of a low socioeconomic status which can't afford it. It's obvious it's not going to completely eradicate it, but it's going to significantly decrease it. And it's like if we're saying like, but yeah, like for example, if you're legalizing drugs, it's obvious that it's gonna decrease the crime associated with drugs.
But it's still not gonna stop it.
Yeah, but you can't completely stop anything. It's like for example, they killed Osama bin Laden. Did it completely stop terrorism? Of course not. It decreased it by a lot, because you killed a big group and their leader, but you're not gonna completely eradicate it.
Yeah, because like now there's a, let's say like there's a power hole, right? Now there's nobody that's controlling that part.
But yeah, but like what I'm saying is that when you're doing something, when you're making a change, you can't approach it in the way that you're expecting to completely erase it.
Yeah,
you have to go with the attitude that you're gonna decrease it. You're not gonna completely eradicate it. You're gonna significantly decrease it. It's obvious that, I mean, if you're legalizing drugs, you're not gonna completely eradicate crimes associated with drugs, but you're gonna significantly decrease it. And it's like if we're seeing, for example, like how like there's many documentaries with that show how like marijuana production started in Mexico. It started with farmers. They were farming marijuana, and which appeared that once it began to turn into crime, was that the government, well, the farmers, they were producing a lot of money because there was a high demand and of their product, and once the government began to see that, they basically wanted a piece of the pie, and that's when they began to attack the farmers. And the farmers, in order to have protection, they began to arm their farmers and their guards. So
yeah, because like of course there's like a lot of people say that no, weed is not addicting, but there's an addictive, like, let's say, characteristic about it. Yeah, like it makes you feel good, and of course a lot of people are gonna want to feel good, so of course they're gonna use it more often. And like now, if you could exploit that, of course you can make money off of it.
but I mean, there's only been so far. It's like, I mean, if you compare it to alcohol, so far there's not much information on it being addictive, because it's basically, it's more like obviously like opiates, it's a temporary effect, but I mean
But then it lasts longer too.
But I mean, it's more natural. It's more of a hallucinogenic. That's why, I mean, when you have someone that is lobbying for example, marijuana, in order for marijuana to be legalized, I mean, there's not much. Like, for someone who has used it, they could tell you that it's not addictive, and it's not commonly reported as a addictive drug compared to heroin or cocaine. It's more like there's people who use it more to be more social. It's like alcohol, but I mean alcohol is very addictive, and there's more deaths associated with alcohol.
But then if you see alcohol it's available in more places too. You could go to a restaurant, right? You could go to a restaurant and buy liquor there. You could drive home. Like, who's gonna stop you? No one.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, there's weed. It's widely distributed. There's many people who consume it. Yeah, obvious, because it was recently legalized, and I mean, alcohol is. I mean, unless if we go back to when it was
prohibition.
Yeah, the prohibition era, when it was illegal. But I mean, other than that, there's not many deaths and health effects associated with marijuana consumption. There's people, like, there's actual information of people using groups of people using marijuana when they have cancer or tumors, and it decreases the size of the tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you have a person who's who has cancer, they're experiencing pain at all times.
And then like it numbs the pain too.
Yeah.
But then, like, yeah, it's like with everything, there has to be some time to actually study it well. And like, yeah, like if you see like alcohol, we know a lot of their effects or what actually does it, what actually affects you. So because we've been studying it for so long, and well, at least with weed right now, it's legal, right? But we still don't know the full effects of it. We know that you could treat this and that, but like it's just over time there's going to be more and more studies that will tell you what actually happens or what chemicals, like let's say what chemical is the one that actually reduces the size of the tumor.
Well, that we already know it, but what I'm saying is that now, well, marijuana has been available for enough time that like we've already conducted studies, and there's
Mm-hmm.
other countries that have it legalized, and they have conducted their studies, and there's no really, I mean, health effects. It's, I mean, yeah, you're inhaling smoke. That's about one of the only effects.
Yeah,
And
you're gonna
I
inhale
mean,
carcinogens and all stuff.
if you're high while driving, of course, uh, it's gonna be a higher incidence of car accidents, but it's not it's not close to compared. It's not close to the amount of accidents associated with alcohol consumption. So it's like there's this article that shows a study conducted in Sweden where they it was conducted on the Swedish army, which looked at a sample of 45,000 people. And if you see, for example, if you're reading an article on samples on groups of people, the higher the group, the bigger the sample, the less likely there would be false positives, or it'll increase the credibility of the study because you're broadening more your sample of people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the study says that on people aged 18 through 20, they found after 15 years that users and non-users of marijuana had the similar life expectancy. So in reality, it shows you that it doesn't really affect you in a way. So I mean, if a normal person just working and making my way through life, and there's a person who uses weed, they have the same life expectancy. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no.
So like let's say like you can't really compare it like with like cigarettes, right? Like cigarettes, like there could be a person like smoking right next to you. You, of course, you get like whatever they inhale too, and yeah, so like it affects you in that way. Like yeah, you're burning it like a cigarette, but it's different chemicals that you're breathing in.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, cigarettes. The cigarettes has tar. It has nicotine, which is the additive chemical. I think I think it has methane or something that I forgot what the chemical's called, but it basically causes your lungs to it causes a decrease in the binding of oxygen to your blood cells, so there's less oxygen going around your body,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically causes you to suffocate in a way. So
Mm-hmm. So like so you're pro, I don't know, pro legalize then in a
drugs,
way, yeah.
yeah, but I mean,
I think to a certain extent, right?
well, no, well, like there obviously has to be. I mean, if you're gonna legalize drugs, there's gonna be there's most likely gonna be more drug administration organizations regulating the consumption. It's like Switzerland. Switzerland has injection
The clinics.
yeah, injection clinics where the people go and they get injected by healthcare professionals, and they're not, for example, injected a big amount. It's like, for example, heroin it's used in the medical field, but it's used in the chemical form. It's clean compared to heroin that you're getting in the street. And yeah, it's more regulated. So I mean, yeah, it's obvious if you're gonna legalize drugs, which obviously people consume more. There's gonna be more government organizations regulating it, and at the same time, it's gonna benefit the country because crime associated with drugs, it's gonna decrease, and addictions and overdoses, it's also going to decrease. So
Yeah. Well, this concludes this episode of the podcast, The Open Minded. Thank you for watching, and bye.